Good afternoon and welcome to Cozy Up and Pay Attention, the Parent Edition, Season 2. If you're looking at my face, it is 2 o'clock straight up Pacific Standard Time, and that means I have another parent for your listening pleasure. If you would kindly take a deep breath and let it out, we'll be right back.
Cozy Stone is a multi-talented comedian extraordinaire who has a real lust for life. She also combines humor and motivation, where she is known as a humorvational speaker. Her youthful ways and positive light make her a beacon for those of all ages. Cozy has lived a remarkable life that has paved the way for so many. She had the longest running open mic venue of 11 years at Tommy Rockers in Vegas, called Cozy's Comedy Corner, through which she introduced many up-and-coming comedians. Before going into comedy, she was one of the first female personal trainers and one of the top fitness trainers in the world. She has trained many greats such as Billie Jean King, Roberta Flack, Andrew Young, Ed Bradley, CCH Pounder, Al Pacino, and Earl Monroe. As a former competitive bodybuilder, she also owned a bodybuilding gym for women over 40 in Los Angeles for several years. She has worked in top positions for HBO, Playboy, and Tony Robbins. She also enjoys volunteer work, dedicating time to the New York Foundling Hospital and babies with AIDS. Cozy Stone has a message that shouldn't be missed.
Please bring me my handsome guest, Mr. TJ Joubert. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, Cozy. How are you?
I'm fine. I like that you winked at me. You're the first person to wink at me. Don't flirt with me, dog. This is my serious time. So you're doing okay?
Great.
Oh, good. Before we get started, I always like to say to the audience, this show is is being offered to celebrate and to promote parenting. More importantly, responsible adults who have created more responsible adults. We know there's no such thing as a perfect parent or perfect parenting practices. Also, we are never parent shaming. If anything, we are hoping that this show will help some parents just refine and define how they are raising their children so that they can get the best out of them and we can all, as a society, enjoy them. What I want to do, TJ, is to get a background, give the audience a background of where you came from, because more often than not, we find history sometimes repeats itself, sometimes it doesn't. So where were your parents born and raised, and how old were they when they gave birth to you?
Well, they're from New York, although my mother was born in Caguas, Puerto Rico, as her parents were actually visiting there, but stayed longer than they planned on, and then they wouldn't let them fly back. So my mother was actually born in Puerto Rico, but grew up in New York, and I was, of course, born in New York as well. Born in Manhattan, grew up in the South Bronx. Hello. Let's see. Dad was about 20. They were both about 25 years old when I was born.
Okay. Were they married?
Oh, yeah. They were married and already had one child, my older brother.
Okay. So you're second child.
Second
right?
child.
Okay. All right. So we have a planned pregnancy from a married couple. How old were you when you had your first child? And I guess because you also had your first child in marriage, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So see, this is history repeating itself.
Yep.
How old were you when you got married? And how old were you both when you had your first child?
We were both 20 years old when we got married. And our first child was, we were 21, born in 76.
Okay. How long did you know your partner, your wife, before you got married?
Probably close to 2 years.
Okay. Where did you meet her?
In New York at the neighborhood. But, I met her in the neighborhood. I knew her for maybe a few months. She had 3 brothers we hung out with all the time, and but then I had joined the army. So while I was in boot camp training and all that, we writing letters back and forth, and then I'd have a vacation, a leave, and then we'd go out and date, and then I was getting ready to go to Germany, and just I don't think we really knew each other that well to be planning a wedding, but we did. We got married, and then eventually we had our daughter Venus, and unfortunately it went sour from there. So
well, let's not go there yet. when you met her, was it her brains, her beauty, or her body that you were most attracted to?
Well, in all honesty, she was a very good looking girl, beautiful body, beautiful face, but it was very strict family, literally from the island in Puerto Rico. Mother didn't speak English, father did, worked in New York. They all spoke perfect English, all the children, all 5 of them. She had 1 sister, 3 brothers. But I was attracted to her, but then again, the boys could go out and hang out, but the girls couldn't. So they walk the dog, and we see them and say hi and stuff. And then it took off from the letters after I left for the army.
Okay, so you got to know one another.
Yeah.
So when you found out, were you in the service when you found out she was pregnant, or were you?
Yeah, no, I was in the service, and we had already been married, and then I was stationed in Germany, and then she came to Germany, and
okay, all right. So I get to ask this most of the time from women, so now I got a male on here. So when you find out and hear the news from your wife's mouth, we're going to be parents. Can you remember the initial thinking? Was it fantasy or fear?
Well,
hearing those words, I'm going to be raising another human being.
It's something I always wanted, but just to keep it on the straight and level here. But all the time we were in Germany wanting to have a child, it wouldn't happen. And then things just went downhill from there. And she had never left home, never been away from her family. And she was in a foreign country. We're talking in the mid 70s there. Life was different, and it was unlike anything she would have imagined, and she didn't want. And it just got so bad that, and this is going to lead to your question of my feeling, because I always wanted to be a father, I always wanted children, and but she wasn't getting pregnant, and we were just going downhill. So she wanted to go home, even though I told her, we're home. This is our home. I sent her home. I sent her back to New York till I finished my tour, and then we'll pick it up from there. But not even 2 months after she got home, like 6 weeks, 7 weeks, I get a letter from my mom, because we didn't have email or any of that stuff back then. That she was pregnant. So that turned to fear, because I didn't know what our life was going to be like when I returned, and just with us, just the 2 of us. And now I have to, consider that we're going to have a child. And so that was very difficult. It was very scary for the next almost 7 months till actually it was longer than that, because I was so close to going back to the United States that they would not let me take leave to go back to New York for the baby to be born, unless she was having complications. But I was within 90 days of rotating from there. So my leave request was denied, and I had to wait till my time. She was born in July, and I didn't get home till November of that year. So, yeah.
How long did you parent together, let's say under the same roof?
Basically, not at all.
Not long.
Not long at all. We tried in New Jersey, where I got stationed from Germany, and got an apartment, and She actually came by for the weekend, and I could almost feel it right now, the knots I had in my stomach, and it got so bad before she left Germany. I didn't want anything to do with her. I talked to the priest there in Germany about annulment, but then she got pregnant. So now we had to deal with that. So long story short, we made out the best we could. I went home every weekend, spending time together with the baby. But as far as the parent thing, we talked about things and thought maybe we could make it work. But I just couldn't see it happening between us. And it killed me. It broke my heart because, I wanted to be I was a dad, but I wanted to be a family. So
it sounds like you were not able to co-parent well. Is that correct?
Yes
and no.
Well, it depends on how you look at it. Well, we did.
So here's what the question is. I always like to ask my guest. Every one of us are raised in our own household, our own environment.
Right.
There's differences. Sometimes there's the sameness. It sounds like there could have been varied. Can you think of 2 or 3 things to share that was so remotely different that you both had to figure it out to raise the child? Is there a lot?
No, not really. Besides not living together, there was, we knew, obviously we're both Catholic. So as far as religion, it went that way.
Okay.
She spoke fluent Spanish. I didn't. And so learning Spanish was, of course, agreed upon. Why not? It's just the thing is, whenever I was able to go back to the city to spend time with him, it's just me spending time with our daughter, but not with my estranged spouse. Although we held hands with the baby together, we went places together, we dined together, but we didn't, we just weren't really comfortable with each other. We didn't hold hands. We didn't, things like that. So it was tough. I tell you, it was tough, especially being in the military and, being stationed somewhere else.
But with your parents and I would think other family members being in New York, she's in New York, were they a part of your support system, a part of your child's life?
Oh yes, we all lived in the same. They all lived in the same building.
Okay.
So it was very, very convenient because she was always with my family, my mom, my dad, my siblings, in their apartment constantly, and going out to the park and doing this and going out. So they were being grandparents and uncles and so forth.
Good.
And then at the evening, of course, most of the time anyway, up with her parents, especially when her father finally got home. But a lot of times, Venus would spend time with my parents, for like a weekend. Just she would let her, and then she'd come down and see her in the morning and stuff like that. So it was pretty good with as far as our families went.
Right. So because we hear about the village, it takes a village, and in this instance, how close can they be? That even if you and her were not either together or in the same building, she first of all, your wife, had others to help her because everybody needs help when they're raising a child.
Yeah.
And just as importantly, your daughter had an opportunity to know her family, all of her family. So that's a big deal. Definitely. So let's pretend for a moment, before you knew this was all going to go awry, you wanted to be a dad. What were 3 things you thought about and considered as you were anticipating being a father? Can you tell me or share that was on the top of your head? When I have a kid, I want blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it wasn't for the first one because I never really remembered thinking much about that, being young and didn't expect everything kind of happened quicker than I anticipated, than I thought it would. But more importantly, I guess the discipline, because growing up with me and my siblings, it was different back then, the discipline, as opposed to what I wanted to do. I wouldn't want to lay my hands on my child Well, not that my dad used a belt, and being in law enforcement all my years, I look at it as a misdemeanor or a felony. You know, it was a misdemeanor where you get like a timeout or you
Right.
take away something from the locker in the room, whatever, to a felony where they get a spanking. Okay, but that's the way I looked at it growing up with my kids once I was established in my field in the military. So, but I wanted the discipline to be something that both of us would agree on. Okay, not like my dad being the disciplinarian and my mom didn't want nothing to do. She didn't want to hear, what was going on. And it was a community thing. So with 4 boys, if one did something and we're all together, then it's a community butt whooping. Okay, you're all going to get it, and then maybe all of you will learn from it. But yeah, that with me, I looked at it the same way with my younger 4, especially. But the punishment would be mostly for the one who deserved the punishment, regardless of what it was. But still, with the others being there to see what happened, to know what happened, and maybe not follow it, and worked out pretty good, actually. So I never used handcuffs either, by the way. So
I did, but we're not talking about that. Okay. So as I continue to ask you questions, I now want you to include your children. All right. We've dealt with your first kid, the marriage. So this next question, as you're raising your children, EN, right?
Okay. My younger 4.
Any and all, whichever ones you had in front of you.
Yeah.
When you were growing up, you just talked about your dad rebelled and your mom didn't want to. Every one of us, I call it the yak, had our parents in our ears, giving us words of wisdom, but we're too young to understand what they were imparting to us. What are 2 or 3 things, even 1 or 2, that your father or mom said to you that you heard yourself saying to your kids when you were raising them?
Besides, I brought you in this world, I'll take you out.
Parents really said that. I'm not ever said that to us. Did he really say it to you?
That's the first thing that came to my mind, because I remember that so well. And I said it to my kids too, but in a loving fashion, not like my dad meant to.
Okay, what else?
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
What were some of the words of wisdom? Again, I call
words of wisdom. Yeah.
And they said it. And as we're young, for me personally, I was like, oh God, please stop telling me that. But everything I wanted her to stop telling me has come back to work for me in my adult life. And if it's, I brought you in and take you out, I've heard other people say that on this show.
I'm sure.
Pretty real.
From mom, not really. Mom was kind of she was just mom, Okay. She was always home. She always did. When we went out, she dressed all 4 of us the same and went. But one thing I remember, 1 or 2 things I remember about my mom saying more than anything else were, always hold hands, always take care of each other. Because every time we went out, she would hold my older brother hand, and then he'd hold mine and my home, and so on. So basically, hold each other's hands. We took it literally, but what she was really saying was always take care of each other. And then my sister, being the youngest, the baby, the spoiled brat, the princess, it was different with her. But always take care of each other, and don't lie. My mom was very, very adamant about not lying. When she found us in a lie, and then wait till if it was really bad, the worst thing we could hear her say is, "Wait till your father gets home." Yeah, we didn't really fear that, because by the time Dad got home, Mom was always, I'm not going to tell your father, but don't lie to me again, or whatever. But yeah.
So for what you repeated to your kids that they said to you were,
"Oh yeah,
I'll put you into this world, I'll take you out."
Yeah, same thing with my mother. Mostly, more than that, is take care of each other. Always be kind to each other. If you can't be kind to your own siblings, how are you going to be kind to your friends? And don't ever be more kind or more loving to friends than you are to family, especially your own siblings. And they're fantastic to each other. I mean, growing up, we all had that. We fight and all this stuff, but especially now as adults, they are. I've been blessed. I'm lucky. None of my kids ever smoked, did drugs, or were in jail or anything like that. So they always took care of each other. They always looked out for one another. And the lying, as they got old, especially, don't lie to
Hold on,
dad.
because now you're going into your personal questions. Hold up. Stop it. Stop. All right. So your first question, remember the five that you chose. Number one was you've chosen is what made you a successful parent? And remember, we're taking everybody. We're not taking any kid apart. You as a parent, what made you a successful parent?
I think, as far as being a parent, is no one knows your child better than you. So, what was successful for me more than anything, I think, is that each child is different. Obviously, the age and everything else, the sex. I treated each one different depending on who they were, based upon their habits and all kinds of things. Just never let them feel like they were just one of a group. They were individuals, although we're all together as a family. And I think the girls felt that more than the boys did. But yeah, that more than anything right there is just treating each one of them individually as not just all four of my kids, but this one, the daughter, this one, so on. So
you identify, you let them have their individual identity.
thank you. That's it.
The
That's
next
what I meant
question-
to say right there.
It's okay. That's why I'm hosting, right? I got to. It made me laugh. Just serious cozy. Okay. Your next question is 3 disciplines you enforced. And I put out an example of eating, hygiene, bed hours, cell, computer. Discipline has its own word, and I'm sure for each parent, they know what that means.
Yeah.
What are 3 disciplines that you enforce? This was not a matter of discussion, and it wasn't an option.
Yep. Respect, number one, including no lying, no back talk, no yelling at the adults, whatever. You can yell at each other as long as it's, it's worth it. But respect, number one. Cleanliness. I was a stickler for that, big time. And from the time they get home from school till they go to bed, and then first thing in the morning and so forth. And the other one is always help out. Always, everybody's got to do their, pull their weight. So those were my top 3. Is got to be
so your kids. So your kids made their bed.
Oh yes.
Okay. They helped out around the house, the mopping, the washing, the dishes.
Yep.
Okay.
And they had took turns. I made a list of who had what each day, so they varied. It's like
it must be a male thing. I had another parent on here. He had a board, and he had the chores up there.
Yeah.
And he said, I didn't have to tell him what to do.
Yeah, in the closet. Open the closet, and today, Chelsea's got this, and Nicholas has that. It worked. It worked really well. Sometimes they do it for each other without even say, "Oh, by the way, I did the dishes. Don't worry about it." I love that. That's part of the teamwork concept as well, helping each other out. So, and not expecting anything in return. Just because I did it for you today doesn't mean you have to do it for me tomorrow. So,
okay. The next question is, did you know your children's friends?
oh yeah. Even though I wasn't around them a lot because of the military, if I didn't know them, I had to know who's this person, who's that person. Again, I was lucky with the girls, always pretty much, especially my younger ones, because they were more into just doing their own thing at home. They weren't into sports for the most part, although they took dance. All 4 younger ones took jazz, tap, ballet. They loved the dance. But I had to know who the guys were. And I'll give you one quick example. One time I was visiting, and they're still in high school. And I was stationed in Greece, actually, and they were in Omaha with their mom. She was stationed there. And I'm spending a couple weeks, and one evening there's a knock on the door, and I happened to be standing there, and I was in really, really good shape back then. And I answer the door, and I have on gym shorts, no socks, no shoes, and a tank top. And my ex-wife played softball. We all did. And there's an aluminum baseball bat behind the door there. And I see it's a guy. It's a kid. It's a teenage boy. So I open the door, and I go, Yeah. And he says, hi, is Brianna here? I said, Brianna. You mean my daughter Brianna? Yes, sir. So hold on. I reached and I grabbed the bat and I put it on my shoulder like this. I go, what do you want with her? By the way, I'm her dad. You should have seen blood face. And then my ex-wife, she comes up there and she says, hey, Brian, hi, come on in. And I'm like, oh, you know this guy? You know, so I'm giving him crap, of course, but I mean, just wow. As soon as he opened the door and he asked for my daughter, so I knew his name was Brian. He was a good kid, but
right. Well, I think as dads, when men become dads,
yeah,
I always hope they remember what they did to other people's daughters, but of course they don't until they have their own, right?
thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, so anyone out there that's listening, if you're not nice to other people's daughters, guess what may happen to yours?
And the boys too. I mean,
karma who makes her rounds.
And the boys too. I mean, the good thing about boys is they have the name, but the girls always would be daddy's little girls, no matter how old they are. But and my girls can take care of themselves, but it was important, even especially because I was gone. Excuse me, a lot of their upbringing, being stationed here, being on ships, and gone for 3 years there, and I'm not consecutive, of course, but is knowing who they're hanging out with, especially when I came to visit. Who's if Christian's not home, where is he? Who's he with? What's he doing? Okay. Same with Nick. The girls were mostly always home. They didn't date. Okay. They had friends and they socialized, but I still wanted to know who they were socializing with. Sure. And when they stayed at a friend's house, they stayed together. So that was important too, especially having, 2 daughters right there. Yeah.
Good.
Important.
You have to know who your kids are with. That's the influence, right? We know it. We hear it all the time. Yeah. We are the company we keep.
Yeah. And their mother knew them. She lived there, so she knew them well. She was comfortable with them, but still, Daddy wanted to know who was who. Sure.
All right. So I'm going to give you a C word. Don't think It's you. I try to stay serious.
You had to do that while I was drinking, Cozy?
All right. Let me put on my I can't stop laughing. What C word did you practice the most? Choices, consequences, consistency, or compassion?
Well, for me, it had to be consistency. Being consistent in everything they did. Especially with all that we talked about with their habits, with courtesies and behaviors and chores and homework. Everything had to be consistent. The more they did it, the better they were at it. And it helped too when get homework time and so consistency for me was number one.
Good. And consistency equals discipline.
It does, and then there's compassion there as well. Because they're getting used to doing it. They're used to doing it. They know the consequences if they didn't do it. But yeah, it's a pretty good combination package there. So
okay. So your last question. What are well, you take your children again. What are you most proud of your children?
So many things.
I know.
Just one thing?
Well, you can give me 2. You're not running off there, and I'm not going to keep you here for an hour, but we've got flexibility.
I'm most proud that they've always been responsible. They've always been responsible. They never blamed each other or someone else for their shortcomings. Wow. And they always tried to resolve their own problems themselves, which is, as a parent, it's awesome. I've known a lot of, especially in my background, where the parents would the kids were always trying to lean on the parents all the time, and they're in their 20s already, for crying out loud. But I am most proud of the fact that they've always been responsible, to each other, to themselves especially. And the other thing is the lives they've lived to where they're at right now. I mean, I couldn't be more proud of every one of them, of where they're at and what they're doing. You know, their professions. Talked to my youngest one last night. She wanted to be an actress. She graduated in University of Nebraska at Lincoln for theater. She dances. I mean, she's awesome. But it didn't pan out there in Pasadena at first. But now, in 12 years later, she's a top dog trainer over there, dog sitter, everything. She's loving it. She's still hoping for maybe a commercial or something, or a play again. But and she sticks with that. She keeps her resumes up. But she's amazing. She's amazing.
And so at the end of the show, how many kids you have? 4 or 5?
6.
4 or 5, 6.
6.
They're all responsible adults. They're all living on their own.
Yep.
They're all taking care of their own lives.
That's right.
They were instilled the discipline, the love, the character, the morals, the support was given to them. And this is what Cozy Up and Pay Attention, the Parent Edition, wants to offer. It can be done. It is being done. Everyone that comes on this show is doing their job. They are sacrificing. They are compromising. They are instilling in their children what we all need to be responsible adults. And you can't leave one out without the other. They pretty much are intermingled together. Right. And so I love to thank my guest, but I can't thank you quite yet because I have my fun question. And
your fun question?
You picked it. You chose it. Remember?
Okay. All right. Well,
remember what you did? All right. So here's the one. I hope, and then I give it to you, and everyone says, "I didn't pick that. This is what you're getting." Would you rather be? It's a good question for you. The best player on a horrible team, or the worst player on a great team?
Would I rather be the best player on a horrible?
Yes, sir. Best player on a horrible team, or the worst player on a great team?
I'd rather be the best player on a horrible team.
And why?
Because if I'm the best, then I can help make them better.
All right.
That's for me. That's rewarding.
I know, but you're making the question your own, and that's it's not acceptable. But
okay, throw it out.
No, let me rephrase that. It is acceptable, but I knew you were going to try to do this. You're pretty much changing the context and content of the question. It is what it is. You're on a horrible team.
Yeah.
You can't make it better. It's a horrible team.
Well, that's
so you
okay.
want to be the best player on a horrible team or the worst player on a great team? You answered.
I don't remember how I answered that one, to be honest.
What do you mean? You just answered it.
No, but didn't I send you?
I told you not to answer it before today, mister.
Oh, that's right. You did tell me that.
I did. You didn't listen.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Usually I listen to you.
I know. I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
that's why I call it a fun question.
Yeah.
You get no demerits. Takes nothing away from these 6 people who've given us to help us in this world have a better life. It takes nothing away from how wonderful you are, how much I love you, how grateful I am for your taking time to share your parenting skills and experiences with all of us. We need you. The world needs you. We need more of you. And the reality is, as I'm doing this show, there's a whole bunch of you out there. And, we hear the media all the time, and they're promoting. We don't get enough of this. Yes, I'd like to do a show if someone's listening, but I don't care if I don't get on NBC. Just to be able to share this aspect of life with any and all the viewers, and we're starting to grow our viewership. I'm very happy and I'm very proud. And I tell my audience, if you are in fact doing your job, which is raising responsible adults, please send me your name, number, and information to Cozy Up and Pay Attention at gmail.com. I also like to say at the conclusion of this show, sometimes in life, when you know better, you do better. And what you parents are bringing to this show is the better. There's no argument about it. You are just doing something that will make all of our tomorrows a better place. And before I finish thanking you, with what I do on this show, I am, some of you know in my 1 minute video says, I am a comedian. I am a self-published author. I am a motivational speaker. And I took a lot of my personality and put it in these pages. They're not thick books, as you can see. They are really one-liners that are quick witticisms. Thank you. Witticisms that will make you smile, that will make you think.
They will.
That is what I do. It's what I love to do. I didn't have kids, so that's my contribution to the world of giving back and affecting the world one book at a time, one friend at a time, one show at a time. Mr. Joubert, you know I love you. I still got some of my drink left. I haven't finished my drinking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I need to drink that, so thank you. Once again, continue to take care of yourself. Continue to also give your goodness to anyone and everyone that you touch, because I'm fortunate enough to have walked into your path, and look at us 15, 16 years later, right? You never know where you're going to meet goodness, but
That's right.
But here we are.
Thank you,
Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you. I love you. And I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.